Samsung recently expanded its Galaxy S23 line with the addition of the lower-cost Galaxy S23 FE. Let's break down the two phones to see what really sets them apart. Samsung debuted its Fan Edition FE phones and tablets several years ago. To create these devices, Samsung leans on feedback from its customers. It packs the features that fans love most about its top phones into scaled-back, more affordable versions. The Galaxy S23 FE is the latest Fan Edition from Samsung to hit the street. How does it compare to its more expensive counterpart, the Galaxy S23? Here's the breakdown. A strong family resemblance. Both devices look more or less the same. You get a generally rounded rectangular shape with a front panel that's dominated by the screen. The S23 has slightly thinner bezels than the S23 FE, which also has a bit of a chin below the screen. The S23 has a polished finish for its metal frame, whereas the S23 FE has a more matte finish. The rear panels look similar thanks to the vertically aligned, triple-lens camera arrays. Each phone available in a variety of colors, with 4 hues being widely available across retail channels and 2 that are exclusively sold through Samsung's website. The most noticeable difference between the two is their size. The Galaxy S23 is more compact and lighter with dimensions of 5.76 by 2.79 by 0.3 inches, HWD, and a weight of 5.9 ounces. The S23 FE is larger and heavier at 6.22 by 3.01 by 0.32 inches and 7.37 ounces. As for the screens, the Galaxy S23 features a 6.1-inch screen with a peak brightness of 1,750 nits, and the Galaxy S23 FE comes with a 6.4-inch display with a maximum brightness of 1,500 nits. Both feature refresh rates of up to 120 Hz for smooth animations, and both have the same resolution of 2,340 by 1,080 pixels. That means the S23 is more pixel dense than the S23 FE. Plus, it should be a little easier to see in direct sunlight thanks to its higher brightness output. Both phones feature under-display fingerprint sensors, but the S23 uses an ultrasonic scanner, while the S23 uses the older optical technology. Ultrasonic sensors are generally better at reading fingerprints even when they are wet or dirty. If you've got smaller hands or like smaller phones, the S23 would be the better bet here. Tough materials. Both devices are IP68 rated, which means they can survive a dunk in water up to 5 feet deep for up to 30 minutes. The Galaxy S23 features Gorilla Glass Victus 2, which is the newest and toughest version of Corning's glass. Meanwhile, the Galaxy S23 FE uses Gorilla Glass 5, which debuted in 2016. Both resist shattering and scratches, but Victus 2 should be better at protecting against damage than Gorilla Glass 5. Samsung advertises the S23 with an armor aluminum frame and says it is the strongest smartphone material in your hands. The S23 FE is not marketed with that material, but it does have an aluminum frame. This implies the S23's frame could be stronger than the S23 FE, so if you're trying to find which is tougher, the S23 looks to be the one. Snapdragons for all. The Galaxy S23 was one of the first phones to feature the Qualcomm Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 system on a chip society. One way Samsung kept the cost of the S23 FE low was to use an older society, so it comes with the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1, which was the top chip of 2022. In terms of benchmarks, the S23 scored 1,853 and 4,901 on the respective single and multi-core tests of Geekbench 6. The S23 FE, comparatively, pulled 1,520 and 3,143 on the same tests. This test quantifies raw computing power, so the Galaxy S23 is more powerful by the numbers. However, in terms of real-world usage, both devices do quite well with multitasking and power-hungry apps. If you're looking for raw performance, the S23 is a better bet. Both the S23 and S23 FE have identical options for memory and storage: 8GB of RAM and either 128GB or 256GB of internal storage. Like many modern phones, neither supports expansion through a micro SD card. This one is a draw. Battery life and charging. Speaking of power, the S23 packs a 900 mAh battery, which in our tests survived 13 hours and 12 minutes. The larger S23 FE has a bigger battery at 500 mAh, but it lasted less at just over 10 hours in the same test. Both devices can fast charge at 25W. We found the S23 charged from 0% to 100% in 81 minutes, whereas the S23 FE took 95 minutes. While the S23 has a smaller battery, it is quite mighty. When it comes to wireless charging, both support Qi wireless charging up to 15W and reverse wireless charging at 7.5W. For connectivity, the S23 and S23 FE both support Wi-Fi 6E, 5G, and Bluetooth 5.3. Similar cameras: the Galaxy S23 and the S23 FE both have a 50 megapixels main shooter at f1.8 and a 12 megapixels ultra-wide at f2.2. On the back, you'll find a 10 megapixels telephoto lens at f2.4 on the S23, but the S23 FE uses an 8 megapixels telephoto camera at f2.4 for its third camera. So the S23 has a slight edge when it comes to its telephoto lens. It also has Samsung's 30x space zoom feature, which blends optical and digital zoom to help focus on faraway subjects. The S23 has a 12 megapixels selfie cam on the front, while the S23 FE has a slightly lower resolution 10 megapixels shooter. Both take fine images and are a bit aggressive at blurring the background when using portrait mode, but that can be undone in the Gallery app. Generally, images from any Samsung phone are a little oversaturated in color, but they preserve detail well even in low light conditions. This is true of both the S23 and the S23 FE. As for video capture, the S23 has a slight edge since it can record video at up to 8K 30fps. The S23 FE maxes out at 8K 24fps. If you're looking strictly at the cameras, the Galaxy S23 outdoes the S23 FE, but not by much. Which S23 is right for you? The Galaxy S23 starts at $799.99 for the 8GB, 128GB model and costs another $60 to upgrade the storage to 256GB. Meanwhile, the base 8GB, 128GB S23 FE runs $529.99 and costs $689 for double the storage. If you want to save nearly $200, the S23 FE is the better deal. Then there is the other battle: your pocket. Do you want to carry a device with a 6.1-inch display or one with a 6.4-inch screen? That's a personal preference. That's the basic breakdown for some of Samsung's top devices. If you need more information, be sure to read our detailed reviews of the Galaxy S23 and the Galaxy S23 FE for all the info that matters.